Sir Monique Harris was not a woman who sought attention. She believed in working hard, letting her work speak for itself. As a CEO and the proud owner of one of the most elegant boutique hotels in Atlanta, she had faced many challenges on her way to success, but she always kept her calm and dignity. Monique had started from very little, coming from a neighborhood where opportunities were scarce and discrimination was common. But she had a dream: to build something that not only reflected her success, but also opened doors for others, like her. After years of struggle and hard work, her dream had come true. Her hotel was now a shining symbol of luxury and pride. But despite all this, Monique never liked to flaunt her power. One late afternoon, after a long business trip, Monique returned to her hotel. She was tired but happy to be back home. This time, she was dressed casually: a simple shirt, jeans, and comfortable shoes. She wanted to relax for a bit before the busy week ahead. As she walked into the hotel lobby, the large glass doors opened automatically, revealing the polished marble floors and soft golden lights that made the place feel warm and welcoming. This hotel was a place she had built with her own hands, a place she called home. But little did she know, today she would face a challenge she never expected. Monique approached the front desk. A young woman was standing there, busy with her work. The receptionist had just started her job a few weeks ago and had not met Monique before. She looked up and saw Monique standing in front of her, dressed simply, and immediately made a judgment. In her mind, the receptionist was polite but distant. She asked, "Can I help you?" in a voice that was polite but cold. Monique smiled gently and said, "Yes, I'd like to book a room for the night." The receptionist's eyes flickered with doubt. "I'm sorry, but we're fully booked tonight. There are no rooms available." Monique felt a strange mix of emotions. She had been here many times before. She knew the hotel well. She knew exactly how many rooms were available. But the receptionist did not recognize her. She did not know that the woman standing before her was the owner, the CEO, the woman who had built this hotel from the ground up. Instead, the receptionist seemed to think Monique was just another traveler asking for a favor. Monique stayed calm. She did not raise her voice or show anger. She simply nodded and asked politely, "Are you sure there are no rooms?" The receptionist glanced around nervously and said again, "Yes, I'm sorry. We are fully booked." Monique noticed a man walking into the lobby shortly after, dressed in a sharp suit. The receptionist greeted him warmly and quickly booked him a room. Monique could see the difference in treatment. The man was white, dressed in expensive clothes, and the receptionist had no doubt about his place in the hotel. This contrast hit Monique deeply. It was a quiet but painful reminder of how people judged others based on their appearance and skin color, even in places where equality should have no question. She wanted to speak up, to explain who she was, but she held back. She believed in showing strength, not in shouting her power. Instead, she decided to observe and think. This was not just about one receptionist or one moment. It was a sign of a bigger problem, one that many people like her faced every day. Monique remembered her journey. She thought about the years she spent fighting to get a loan to buy this building, the endless meetings where people doubted her, the times when her ideas were ignored just because she was a black woman. She remembered the nights she worked alone, making sure every detail of the hotel was perfect. This hotel was her dream, and she had made it real with patience, hard work, and courage. Despite the disappointment, Monique smiled to herself. She knew that real power was quiet. It was not about demanding respect. It was about earning it through actions. She decided she would handle this situation in her own way, without anger but with determination. She would make them regret underestimating her, not by shouting, but by showing her true strength. Monique walked away from the front desk and found a quiet corner in the lobby. She sat down and took out her phone. She opened the hotel's reservation system through her secure CEO access. As she expected, The system showed that there were actually many rooms available. The hotel was not full at all. She saw the numbers clearly. 12 empty rooms waiting to be booked. The receptionist was lying, or maybe just scared and unsure. But either way, Monique was ready to show them the truth. While sitting there quietly, Monique thought about what to do next. She could easily call the manager, or she could reveal herself, and demand the respect she deserved. But she knew that would not solve the deeper problem. She wanted to teach a lesson, not only to the receptionist and the manager, but to the whole hotel staff. A lesson about fairness, respect, and the damage caused by silent prejudice. As Monique planned her next step, she noticed the customers, coming and going, some greeting her warmly, others not noticing her at all. She felt a mix of sadness and hope. Sadness because prejudice still existed even in places she had worked so hard to create. Hope because she believed in change, and she knew she could be the change herself. Monique's assistant, James, had been waiting nearby. When she explained the situation quietly, he nodded with understanding. They agreed to handle this carefully. James reminded her, "You don't have to prove anything to anyone, Monique. You're already a success." Monique smiled softly and replied, "Sometimes, James, success is not enough. Sometimes you have to remind people why they should respect you, not because of what you say, but because of who you are." The evening slowly settled over the city. The lights in the hotel glowed brighter as the sun disappeared. Monique sat there, calm and confident, ready to turn this moment of denial into a moment of change. She knew her next move would surprise everyone. In that quiet lobby, surrounded by luxury and the soft hum of life, Monique was not just a CEO. She was a woman who had faced prejudice many times before and had risen stronger every time. She was ready to make them regret underestimating her, not with anger, but with quiet power and undeniable success. After the quiet but painful moment at the front desk, Monique did not react in anger. Instead, she carefully thought about the best way to handle the situation. She was a smart woman, a powerful CEO who had built her hotel from nothing. She knew that making a scene or yelling at the staff would only cause problems. What she wanted was to teach a lesson, one that would change the hotel culture forever. She wanted the people who worked for her to understand that judging someone by their skin color or appearance was wrong, especially in her hotel. Monique stood up and calmly asked the receptionist if she could speak to the manager on duty. The receptionist hesitated for a moment but finally nodded and called someone on the phone. A few minutes later, a young man came to the front desk. His name was Ethan, and he was the hotel manager for the evening shift. Monique had hired Ethan not long ago as part of a new diversity program. She believed that giving chances to young professionals from all backgrounds was important, and Ethan had seemed like a promising candidate. Monique hoped that Ethan would treat her differently. Maybe since he worked closely with her, he would recognize her, or at least listen carefully to her request. But she was wrong. Ethan looked at her carefully, but he did not recognize her at all. She was still dressed simply, without any sign of the CEO she was. He smiled politely, but with a little confusion. "Hello, ma'am," Ethan said. "How can I help you?" Monique replied. "I was told there are no rooms available, but I'd like to check that with you." Ethan nodded and said, "Let me check." He tapped quickly on the computer screen behind the desk. After a moment he said, "I'm sorry, but it seems we are fully booked tonight. There is nothing I can do." Monique watched his face carefully. There was no disrespect, but there was a clear assumption in his words. He did not ask any questions. He did not consider the possibility that maybe the front desk was wrong or mistaken. Monique realized Ethan believed what he was told and didn't question it. She felt a quiet sadness inside her. Here she was, the owner of this hotel, and the man who worked for her had no idea. She could have shown him her ID, told him who she was, and demanded a room right then and there. But she chose not to. Monique believed that actions spoke louder than words. She wanted Ethan and the receptionist to understand the truth in a way that would stay with them forever. While Ethan was still at the front desk, Monique quietly opened the hotel's reservation system on her phone using her CEO access. She scanned the list of rooms and bookings. Her heart sank a little, but she also felt a strong determination. There were indeed 12 rooms empty. The hotel was not full. The system clearly showed available rooms waiting to be filled, yet her staff had refused her service based on assumptions. She closed her phone and smiled softly. This moment was an opportunity. She was going to turn this situation around without yelling or forcing anyone. Instead, she would make them regret treating her like a stranger in her own hotel. Not by words, but by quiet strength. Monique thought about her past. She remembered how hard it was to get the hotel started. The first years had been a battle against prejudice and rejection. Banks refused her loan applications simply because she was a black woman. Investors ignored her ideas. At every step, she had to prove herself more than anyone else. But she never gave up. She worked late nights, made countless phone calls, and visited construction sites herself to make sure every detail was perfect. Her hotel was her dream made real. Now, she was going to teach those who doubted her a lesson they would never forget. Without a word, Monique booked the presidential suite right from her phone. It was the most luxurious room in the hotel, with a beautiful view of the city skyline and every comfort one could imagine. She reserved it for herself for the night. This was not just a hotel room. It was a symbol of her success. As she stood there quietly, waiting for her booking confirmation, Ethan and the receptionist were busy preparing for the evening. They had no idea what was coming next. They were simply following their routine, unaware that the woman they had just dismissed was about to turn the tables. Monique's assistant, James, who had been standing nearby, watched the scene unfold with admiration. He admired Monique's calm and composed manner. He knew how much she had struggled to get to where she was, and he knew she never wasted energy on anger. James was ready to support her in whatever plan she had. When the booking confirmation appeared on Monique's phone, she smiled again. The presidential suite was now officially reserved under her name. She turned and walked out of the hotel lobby, without saying a word. The staff behind the front desk stared after her, confused and uncertain. They had no idea that the woman who just left was the CEO. They had not realized their mistake yet. Minutes later, Ethan received a notification on the computer. The hotel's reservation system had just registered a new booking for the presidential suite. He looked at the screen in surprise. "Who booked this?" he asked aloud. The receptionist looked over his shoulder, equally surprised. They quickly checked the details and saw the name, Monique Harris. It was a name they knew, but neither of them had made the booking. Confusion turned to panic. The presidential suite needed to be prepared immediately. The staff scrambled to clean and arrange the room, trying to make everything perfect for the guest. They were still unaware that the guest was the woman who had just been turned away. Meanwhile, Monique was already preparing to return, this time with her personal assistant and her head of security. She wanted to make sure the staff understood the full weight of what had happened. This was not just about a room, it was about respect, equality, and fairness. When Monique returned to the lobby, she walked confidently to the front desk. This time her assistant and security stood beside her, making the atmosphere serious and official. Monique looked directly at Ethan and the receptionist. "I am Monique Harris," she said calmly. "I am the owner and CEO of this hotel." The words hit the staff like a shock. Ethan's mouth opened in surprise, but no words came out immediately. The receptionist's face went pale. They could not believe they had just treated their boss like a stranger, and worse, had denied her a room she owned. Monique did not yell or accuse them harshly. Instead, she spoke with quiet authority. She explained how she had been turned away, how the staff had refused to recognize her, and how the hotel was not actually full. Ethan stammered an apology, but Monique stopped him. She said this was not just about one apology. It was about changing the way the hotel treated its guests and staff. She needed to make sure this never happened again. That very evening, Monique called an emergency meeting with her senior management team and the Human Resources Department. She wanted a full investigation into the incident. She wanted to understand why the staff had made such assumptions and how the hotel could improve. Monique also decided to bring in a press liaison, someone who could quietly document the situation and report on the hotel's commitment to change. She knew that transparency was important. This was not a story she wanted to hide, but a lesson she wanted the whole city to learn. Throughout the meeting, Monique remained calm and focused. She listened carefully to her team and made it clear that discrimination of any kind would not be tolerated. She stressed the importance of respect, inclusion, and professionalism in every corner of the hotel. By the end of the night, Monique had laid out a clear plan. The staff would receive new training on diversity and inclusion. The hotel would review its policies and hiring practices. And most importantly, Monique promised that she would personally lead these changes. This moment was not just a wake-up call for the hotel. It was a turning point for everyone involved. Monique showed that true leadership was about more than money or titles. It was about standing up for what was right, even when it was difficult. As the meeting ended, Monique felt a deep sense of satisfaction. She had turned a moment of rejection into a chance for growth. She had made the people who doubted her see her real power, not through anger, but through quiet, undeniable strength. Outside the hotel, the city lights twinkled like stars. Monique knew her journey was far from over, but tonight she had taken a big step. She had made them regret denying her a room, but more importantly, she had started a new chapter of respect and equality in her hotel. She smiled to herself and thought, "This is only the beginning." The moment Monique Harris walked back into the hotel lobby with her personal assistant James and her head of security, Marcus, the atmosphere shifted completely. The front desk staff, Ethan and the receptionist, still didn't fully realize who she was. But this time, something about her presence was different. Stronger, firmer. There was no doubt this was not just any guest. The confidence in her steps, the quiet control in her eyes told a different story. Monique stopped right in front of the desk and looked directly at Ethan. His face turned pale as he finally realized who the woman was, the CEO and owner of the very hotel they worked for. He had never expected that the same person he had refused to give a room to was the one who had built the entire place. The receptionist could hardly believe it either. Her hands trembled slightly as she shuffled papers nervously, avoiding eye contact. She was the newest employee, young and inexperienced, and clearly overwhelmed by the situation. Monique spoke calmly but with quiet authority. She said, "I am Monique Harris, CEO and owner of this hotel. I was denied a room just minutes ago. Yet, I found 12 vacant rooms in the system. How do you explain this?" Ethan stammered. I'm very sorry, Ms. Harris. There must have been some mistake. We didn't recognize you, and the front desk told me the hotel was full." Monique nodded slowly. "I understand, Ethan, but this is not just about a mistake. This is about assumptions. Assumptions that have no place in my hotel. I want to understand why you treated me this way." The room was silent except for the faint hum of the air conditioning and the soft footsteps of other guests passing by. Monique's assistant James stood behind her, silently supporting her. Marcus, the head of security, kept a calm, watchful eye on the surroundings. Ethan swallowed hard and said, "I think it was a misunderstanding. The staff was just following procedure." Monique looked at him thoughtfully. "Following procedure is important, yes, but when procedure leads to discrimination, it needs to be changed." The receptionist finally found her voice. "I'm sorry, Ms. Harris. I didn't mean to be rude. I I didn't think someone like you would be staying here. Monique's eyes softened for a moment, but she remained firm. That's exactly the problem. You made a judgment based on my appearance. I am the owner of this hotel. Judging someone by how they look is not acceptable here. Ethan quickly jumped in. Ms. Harris, I'm sorry for the disrespect. I'll make sure this never happens again. Monique nodded. That's good to hear, Ethan, but words are not enough. I want action. With that, Monique asked Ethan to join her and the senior management team for an emergency meeting that same evening. She wanted to discuss what had happened and create a plan to prevent it from ever happening again. As she moved toward the elevator with James and Marcus, the front desk staff looked on, still in shock. They realized they had made a serious mistake. They had unknowingly embarrassed their boss and shown disrespect to the very person who had given them their jobs. Monique knew this was just the beginning. To truly fix the problem, she needed to dig deeper. She wanted to understand the culture in the hotel that allowed this kind of discrimination to happen. She also wanted to involve the whole team in making changes. Later that evening, Monique gathered her senior management team and the Human Resources Department in one of the hotel's conference rooms. The atmosphere was tense, but respectful. Everyone understood the seriousness of the situation. Monique began by calmly explaining what had happened earlier that day. She shared how she was denied a room, how the receptionist and manager had not recognized her, and how the hotel was actually not full. She made it clear that this was not just about one incident, but about a deeper problem of bias and assumptions. She then opened the floor for discussion. Ethan spoke first, apologizing, again and admitting that he and the staff needed better training on diversity and inclusion. Other managers agreed and shared their own experiences with similar situations. Monique listened carefully. She asked questions like, how do we change the way we hire and train our staff? How can we create an environment where everyone feels respected and valued, regardless of their background? What policies need to be improved or introduced? The HR director, a thoughtful woman named Linda, suggested bringing in outside experts to conduct workshops on unconscious bias and cultural sensitivity. She also recommended regular training sessions for all employees, not just managers. Monique agreed wholeheartedly. She believed that education was the first step toward change. But she also wanted accountability. She decided to launch a formal internal investigation into the incident. This investigation would include interviews with all staff involved and a review of the hotel's procedures. To ensure transparency, Monique decided to invite a press liaison from a local media outlet to quietly observe the process. This was not about public shaming, but about showing the community that her hotel was committed to change and fairness. Throughout the meeting, Monique remained calm and focused. She reminded everyone that her hotel was not just a business, but a symbol of progress and inclusion. If we fail to act now, she said, we risk losing the trust of our guests and the respect of our community. Her words resonated deeply. The management team agreed to work together to implement a new code of conduct and improve hiring practices to ensure diversity. After the meeting, Monique stayed late, reviewing the hotel's records and speaking with her assistant James. She knew this was a big challenge, but she was determined. She had built this hotel with her heart and soul, and she would protect it with all her strength. Meanwhile, the news of the incident began to spread quietly through the hotel staff. Some employees were upset, others felt embarrassed, but many admired Monique's calm and firm leadership. They saw that she was not angry for the sake of anger, but was leading with purpose. The receptionist, who had first denied Monique a room, was especially shaken. She reached out to James and asked for a private meeting. She wanted to apologize and learn more about how she could do better. Monique welcomed the conversation. She believed in second chances and growth. She told the receptionist that recognizing bias was the first step toward change, and that she would personally support her through the new training programs. Ethan, too, took responsibility seriously. He requested to be demoted temporarily to the front desk to learn firsthand what the guests experienced. Monique respected his honesty and agreed. In the days that followed, Monique worked with Linda, the HR director, to plan a series of workshops and training sessions. They invited civil rights experts, business leaders, and motivational speakers to educate the staff. Monique personally led the kickoff meeting. She shared her own story, how she faced discrimination and overcame it. She spoke about the power of respect, humility, and kindness. Her words inspired many employees. They began to see the hotel not just as a workplace, but as a community where everyone mattered. Outside the hotel, the story started to leak to the local press. A staff member who admired Monique's leadership shared the story with a reporter. The article was published quietly at first, but soon went viral. The public response was overwhelming. Guests praised Monique for handling the situation with grace and strength. Many shared their own experiences of discrimination, sparking a larger conversation about race, power, and respect in the hospitality industry. Monique's hotel, once at risk of embarrassment, became a symbol of change and hope. Through it all, Monique remained humble. She knew the journey toward true equality was long, but she was ready to lead the way. In the end, the incident that could have destroyed her reputation instead made her stronger. She proved that true power was not in shouting or punishing, but in teaching, understanding, and changing hearts. And so, with quiet confidence, Monique looked forward to the future, ready to build a hotel where everyone was treated with respect, no matter who they were or how they looked. After the incident that had shaken the hotel's staff and management, Monique Harris knew that the hard work was just beginning. It wasn't enough to just apologize or hold a few meetings. Real change needed real action, consistent effort, and a true commitment from everyone involved. Monique was not the kind of leader who would back down or take the easy way out. She wanted to transform her hotel into a place where respect, fairness, and equality were not just words on a paper, but lived every day by every employee and experienced by every guest. The day after the emergency meeting, Monique started implementing her plan. First, she called a staff-wide meeting. This included everyone, from the housekeeping team to the chefs in the kitchen, from the security guards to the front desk clerks. She wanted everyone to hear her message directly from her own lips. It was important that no one felt left out or ignored. The conference room was packed with employees. Some looked curious, others nervous. Some even whispered among themselves, wondering what the CEO would say. Monique walked to the front, smiled warmly, and began speaking. She told the story of what had happened. She did not hide the truth or sugarcoat it. She spoke honestly about being denied a room in her own hotel and how that made her feel. She talked about the importance of respect and dignity. But more than anything, she spoke about hope. The hope that they could all work together to make this hotel better. Her words touched many hearts. There were a few moments when some employees looked down or shifted uncomfortably, realizing they might have played a part in the problem. But Monique was gentle, and she made it clear that this was not about blaming anyone, but about learning and growing together. After her speech, Monique introduced a new program for diversity and inclusion. Training. She explained that experts would be brought in to teach everyone about unconscious bias, cultural sensitivity, and how to treat guests and co-workers with kindness and fairness. She emphasized that this was not a punishment, but an opportunity to become better professionals and better human beings. Monique also shared new policies that would be introduced immediately. These policies included clear rules against discrimination, a process for reporting incidents safely, and consequences for those who broke the rules. Everyone was given a copy of the new code of conduct, and Monique asked each employee to sign it, promising to uphold these values. The energy in the room changed. What had started as tension slowly turned into hope and determination. Many employees thanked Monique for her honesty and leadership. Monique didn't stop there. She knew that training and policies were important, but real change required ongoing effort. So she decided to create a new position within the hotel, a diversity and inclusion officer. This person would be responsible for ensuring the hotel stayed true to its new values, handling complaints, and organizing regular training sessions. After a careful search, Monique hired Tasha, a young professional with experience in social justice and human resources. Tasha was passionate and ready to make a difference. Together, Monique and Tasha began visiting different departments, speaking with employees one-on-one. They listened to concerns, answered questions, and collected ideas. This personal approach made many employees feel heard and valued. Monique believed that change could only happen if everyone felt part of the process. Meanwhile, the hotel's management team started reviewing hiring practices. They realized that many of the problems came from unconscious biases in recruitment and promotion. For example, some positions were offered mostly to people from certain backgrounds, while others were overlooked. Monique wanted to change this. She insisted that the hotel would focus on skills, experience, and attitude when hiring, rather than assumptions about appearance or background. To help with this, the HR department introduced blind recruitment processes, where personal information like name, age, or ethnicity was hidden during initial reviews of applications. This way, the focus stayed purely on the candidate's qualifications. Monique also encouraged mentorship programs within the hotel. Experienced employees were paired with newer staff, especially from underrepresented groups, to help them grow and succeed. This created a supportive community that was more inclusive and stronger. During this time, Monique made sure to visit every floor and department regularly. She wanted to see how things were going firsthand, talk to guests and employees, and understand the real challenges. She noticed small things that could be improved, like signs in different languages, new cultural celebrations for staff, and even menus that included dishes from diverse backgrounds. One evening, after finishing a long day, Monique sat in her office reflecting on the journey. She felt proud but also aware of the road ahead. True change was never easy, and old habits and biases were hard to break. But she believed in the power of kindness and education. As the weeks passed, the hotel began to feel different. The mood was lighter, smiles came more easily, and the team seemed more united. Guests noticed the warmth and friendliness of the staff. Reviews began to praise not only the comfort and beauty of the hotel, but also the welcoming atmosphere. Monique received letters and messages from guests and employees alike, thanking her for making the hotel a place where everyone felt safe and respected. One guest wrote, "Your hotel feels like a home away from home. I felt valued and cared for in a way I never expected." Another employee shared, "I used to feel invisible here. Now I feel like I belong. Thank you for believing in us." But not everything was perfect. Some employees struggled with the new changes. A few resisted the training or didn't want to accept the new policies. Monique dealt with these situations carefully. She held private meetings to understand their concerns and offered additional support. When it was clear that someone refused to change, Monique was firm in her decisions. The hotel would not allow discrimination or disrespect, no matter who was involved. One incident involved a senior staff member who openly complained about the diversity program. Monique invited him for a private conversation. She listened to his concerns, explained the reasons behind the changes, and shared stories of guests who had been hurt by bias. After several talks, he agreed to attend the training and try to change his attitude. Monique believed in second chances, but she also knew when to draw the line. Outside the hotel, the story of Monique's leadership and the hotel's transformation continued to spread. Local newspapers and online blogs featured the story, praising her courage and commitment. Some other hotel owners reached out to Monique for advice on how to improve their own businesses. Monique welcomed these conversations. She believed in lifting others up and sharing knowledge. She even planned to host workshops for other businesses on diversity and inclusion. One day, a reporter asked Monique if she felt discouraged by the initial rejection at the hotel. Monique smiled and replied, "Every challenge is an opportunity to grow. What happened to me was painful, yes, but it pushed me to make something better. I want my hotel to be a place where no one feels the way I did that day." Her honesty and strength inspired many. As months went by, Monique and her team organized special events celebrating diversity. They held cultural nights where employees shared their traditions, foods, and stories. They invited community leaders to speak and partnered with local organizations promoting equality. These events brought the staff closer together and built a strong sense of family within the hotel. Guests loved the vibrant atmosphere and often stayed longer just to join the celebrations. Monique also introduced a feedback system, encouraging guests and employees to share their experiences and suggestions. This helped the hotel improve continuously and showed that everyone's voice mattered. Despite the progress, Monique remained humble. She knew that true change was a journey, not a destination. She continued to listen, learn, and lead by example. One evening, as she walked through the lobby, she noticed Ethan working diligently at the front desk. She smiled and walked over. "Ethan," she said warmly, "thank you for stepping up. I see the changes in you and the whole team." Ethan looked up, a little embarrassed but proud. "Thank you, Ms. Harris. I've learned a lot. I want to make sure no one ever feels the way you did." Monique nodded. "That's all I ever wanted." In that moment, Monique realized the real power of leadership. It was not about titles or money, but about inspiring people to be better, to care more, and to stand up for what is right. Her hotel was no longer just a building where people slept. It was a home, a community, a symbol of hope and progress. And Monique Harris knew that her journey, and the journey of her hotel, was far from over. But she was ready, stronger and wiser, to face whatever challenges came next. After months of hard work, patience, and dedication, Monique Harris finally began to see the fruits of her labor. The hotel had undergone a remarkable transformation. It was no longer just a luxury building standing tall in the city. It had become a place where people from all walks of life felt welcome, safe, and respected. The changes she had put in place, new training programs, clear policies, open conversations, were working. The staff was more united, guests were happier, and the reputation of the hotel was stronger than ever. Yet, Monique knew that this success was not just about statistics or profits. It was about healing wounds, breaking down barriers, and changing minds. It was about the human spirit and the belief that everyone deserves dignity and kindness. One sunny morning, Monique was walking through the hotel lobby when she noticed something different. The front desk area was buzzing with energy, but this time, it wasn't tense or uncomfortable. Instead, the employees were smiling, chatting politely with guests, and working together smoothly. Ethan, the front desk clerk who had once refused Monique a room, was helping a family check in with genuine warmth. Monique smiled to herself. She had seen Ethan's transformation firsthand, from embarrassment and guilt to understanding and pride. He had taken every training seriously and had become one of the most welcoming faces of the hotel. As Monique continued her walk, she saw the receptionist who had first denied her a room. This young woman was now confidently assisting guests, even helping to train new employees about hospitality and respect. She had apologized to Monique privately and embraced the new values wholeheartedly. The receptionist had grown not just professionally, but personally. The sight warmed Monique's heart. She realized that real change was possible when people were given the chance to learn and grow. Just then, Monique's phone buzzed. It was a message from a longtime guest, Mr. Williams, who had been staying at the hotel for years. He wrote, "Monique, I just wanted to say thank you. Your hotel feels like a second home now. The kindness and respect from your staff are truly special. Keep up the great work. Monique felt a deep sense of satisfaction. This was the kind of feedback she wanted. Not just compliments on the luxury or service, but recognition for the heart and soul behind the hotel. That evening, Monique hosted a special event in the grand ballroom of the hotel. It was a celebration of diversity, inclusion, and community, a way to honor the journey they had all taken together. Guests, staff, community leaders, and even some local politicians were invited. The room was beautifully decorated with colorful banners, traditional art from different cultures, and a stage for speakers and performers. The air buzzed with excitement and anticipation. Monique stood at the podium and began to speak. She thanked everyone for their support and hard work. She shared her story, how she had been denied a room in her own hotel, how it had hurt her deeply, and how that moment had sparked a movement of change. Her voice was steady but emotional. That day, she said, was painful, but it was also a wake-up call. It reminded me that even in places of success, we can still face challenges, but what matters is how we respond. We chose to respond with courage, with education, and with love. The audience listened intently, many wiping away tears or nodding in agreement. After her speech, there were performances showcasing the rich cultural backgrounds of the hotel's staff. Traditional dances, songs, and poetry filled the room. It was a beautiful reminder of the power of diversity, the way it could bring people together instead of pulling them apart. Monique mingled with the guests, shaking hands, sharing stories, and listening to their experiences. Many shared how the hotel had changed their lives. Some spoke about feeling accepted for the first time in a long while. Others spoke about hope. The hope that their children could grow up in a world where respect and equality were the norm. As the night drew to a close, Monique felt a deep sense of peace. This was the moment she had dreamed of. A place where people came together not just for luxury or convenience, but for community and belonging. The next day, Monique received a call from a major news network. They wanted to do a feature story on her hotel and the transformation it had undergone. The interview was a chance to share her message with a wider audience. During the interview, Monique spoke openly about the challenges she had faced, the mistakes that had been made, and the lessons learned. She emphasized that leadership was about responsibility, not just to a company, but to the people who work there and the community it serves. She also spoke about the importance of listening, really listening, to those who feel marginalized or unheard. We all have a role to play, she said. Whether we are CEOs or front desk clerks, we can choose kindness, respect, and fairness every day. The interview aired during prime time and received overwhelming positive feedback. People admired Monique's honesty and dedication. Many shared their own stories of discrimination and hoped her example would inspire others to make similar changes. Back at the hotel, Monique continued her hands-on approach. She made sure to check in regularly with her diversity and inclusion officer, Tasha, to review progress and discuss any new challenges. They worked together to refine training programs, improve communication, and celebrate successes. One afternoon, a young employee named Jasmine approached Monique. Jasmine was nervous but determined. She told Monique how much the changes in the hotel meant to her. Jasmine shared that she had always dreamed of working in hospitality, but had faced discrimination in previous jobs. At this hotel, she finally felt like she had a chance to grow and succeed. Monique smiled warmly and encouraged Jasmine to keep pushing forward. She promised to personally mentor her and help her reach her goals. Stories like Jasmine's reminded Monique why she had started this journey. It wasn't just about fixing one incident. It was about creating a legacy of opportunity and respect. Over the next few months, the hotel continued to thrive. Guests came not only for the luxury, but for the welcoming atmosphere and the sense of community. Staff turnover decreased as employees felt valued and supported. The hotel even won several awards for diversity and inclusion, becoming a model for others in the industry. Despite all this success, Monique stayed humble. She continued to lead with kindness, patience, and determination. She knew that every day was a chance to learn and improve. One evening, as she closed her office, she looked out the window at the city skyline. The hotel lights shone brightly, a beacon of hope and change. She thought about the journey, from the moment she was denied a room to this very night. Monique realized that what had once felt like a setback had become her greatest strength. The pain had turned into purpose. The rejection had sparked revolution. Her hotel was no longer just a business. It was a symbol that no matter where you come from or what you look like, you deserve respect, kindness, and a chance to shine. Monique smiled to herself. The future was bright, and she was ready to keep fighting for a better, fairer world.